Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Sarah.
Okay. Onegaishimasu.
Onegaishimasu.
You. Okay, consciously connecting to the ground. And that connection entering the ground, let that feed back. Let that reverberate back into, through, and up your body. So you enter, let that open up your feet. Let accepting the ground into your body, open your body. Including releasing and opening the abdomen, freeing the breath, all that from the connection with the ground through your feet. And then maintaining that connection or coming back to it over and over again throughout our movements. So for example, when we go into any movement, let's say arm swings, notice what you lose, what pulls in, when and where you separate from this integration. So maintaining that integration as much as you can through all the various shapes and movements we do. Letting the feet open and expand. And let that openness work up through your body, to the abdomen, and upward and beyond. A little wider. Still notice when you pull up away from the ground and when you separate from the vertical movement of gravity. You want to join it, agree with it. Into the ground and agree with the vertical line of gravity. And forward and back. And see how much you can enter the ground with each weight shift. It's the entering the ground that actually weight shifts you.
Sensei, can I ask, is that really entering in your whole foot or is it more in the ball of your foot?
Okay, that's a good question. So generally speaking, it's the full foot. That's to facilitate a relaxation, an expansive relaxation. So basic approach is the entire bottom of the foot. And we just have to make one little caveat there that we don't collapse into the arch. So if you imagine that the arch was flat, it's a whole surface area. So you want a full contact from ball to heel, generally speaking. That's to facilitate staying open and relaxed. There's times and later on where you can emphasize the ball of the foot, but what that tends to do, if this is the ball of my foot, these are my toes, very long toes. It's my foot, ball of the foot. If we say emphasize the ball of the foot in terms of internal work, internal art, that's fine for physical external martial arts. That's good because the ball of the foot, springy. You're not caught flat-footed, literally flat-footed. And there's lots of good spring there. boxing, for example, of course, you know, various sports like that. That's exactly what they're doing for that reason. The problem with doing that in terms of going deeper internally is that always keeps a tension in your foot and calf. So if I say, stay in the balls of your feet, there's going to be a tightness and tension. So that's how we have to kind of, that's one of the fine differentiations between external and internal arts. So physically, there's nothing wrong with it. If you're doing a sport and you're not going to spend years of going deeper and doing internal work, that's the way to go. You get the efficient, quick results, and you get those results you want in a matter of, you know, a short period of time. If we stay with that level, it'll never release. So for example, in Tai Chi, we'll talk about spreading the bones apart in the feet and keeping that full contact through the whole foot. That's going away from that kind of that taut tightness in the foot and the calf. So very different approaches. So what I'd like us to do is truly as close to literally as possible enter the ground. Like you're melting into the ground, but you're not losing your vertical structure. If we maintain the ball of the foot, there's always going to be something preventing us from entering the ground. There's a barrier there, a barrier of tautness and tightness. Releasing that abdomen, hanging the tailbone. Yeah, let's go into Funakuki Endo as part of a warm-up. So approach it very slow. Help to open up the back as well. Now, the only thing, for example, for me, I'll often use the ball of my foot, and you can do that eventually. And if you can do it now by a process of spreading and opening the ball of the foot, then you're not losing what we want to get. But that's going to be difficult to do for most people. So I can activate the ball of the foot by opening. This is the ball of my foot. Opening the structure of it. Then I've got that openness, the dropping down, and that the fascia is being addressed. I'm using that fascia tautness, not muscular tautness. So that may not be accessible right now. So right now you want to just relax and open everything. Okay, some nice big open stretching movement through Sayuendo. Stretching the hip, stretching along here, breath-wise. So approaching Sayuendo as a stretch, sinking into the hip, opening the hip and torso. So approaching this more as a stretch right now. Okay, coming down here, and you can either stay on the knees or in the balls of the feet. We go for a gentle stretch through the torso, then lengthening through the torso, to the front of the torso, pop you up. And back down. So facilitating that movement through the stretch here. Not a contraction, contracting, but a stretching of the tissue. If you want to go down to your knees and simply go here, that's fine too. Try to activate that stretch to make any movement. Now again, you can do it on the knees here too if you want. Open up through your arms, stretch out through the arms. Again, doing it through a lengthening process, opening, stretching. Okay. Same process here. We did this last night, I think. So it's good to contrast a couple times as well, coming up the normal way, which is tightening everything, tightening the abdomen, squeezing the thighs, and do the opposite direction. Lengthen through the leg. So the action is like extending a plane, elongating along that plane, and that pops me up. Stretching this direction. And that does the work for me. So I open through my body. And like a trampoline, I'm sent up. So using the trampoline tissues of the body, which is the fascia and connective tissue. Okay, other side. So experiment, contrast, come up normal, and we even tend to grunt a little bit, tightening up, pulling up. We do the opposite, we stretch through. So in a sense, I'm not trying to come up, I'm trying to stretch. I'm doing my stretch, and I'm brought up. So that's not quite stretch and come up, right? That's not it. I'm stretching, opening, stretching, and then eventually finding that connection where that pops me up. Now let's take that into our Minucci. So everything is a function of opening the body, stretching the body. Just like we're doing the plank, stretching, coming up with the legs through stretching. Everything I'm doing is through a process of stretching. But the tricky part is we're not stretching with the muscles. So you just do the best you can. Over time, your awareness deepens and refines. Your mind-body connection develops. Your ability to access finer and finer tissue, deeper and deeper in the body, develops like any other skill. At first, everything is very crude in the sense that it's very macro, crude muscle. The red tissue, the stuff that gobbles up the blood and the chi and the energy. And we go to the finer tissue, the white tissue. So the best you can, opening up the joints, stretching long, without stretching muscularly. So at first, for most people, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Do the best you can. Relax, release. And basically, it's doing it with your intention, your focused intention, your extended intention. That's really going to be the key to get you deeper into this, to start to experience, oh, okay, that's what's meant by this. Get a physical understanding and experience of what it is to not use the muscles to stretch, but use something else. So basically, the key is using strong directional intention and backing off on the muscle use. One helpful little trick or tip with this, and we've mentioned before that often coming back is a really good trigger. So if you really, and coming back, and we'll say here in particular, down, letting your arms grow right to the ground. The backs of your fingers are touching the ground. Your arms are 5 feet long, touching the ground. Getting that feeling before you go forward and keeping that feeling as you go forward. So that you're not moving your arms up muscularly. You're not using your muscles, so to speak. You're using that length and that stretch, that growing stretch to move your arms. One very simple, so this is, part of, again, the internal methods we work with, very different than normal. Normal reaction, if you're in an altercation or simply doing exercise, the normal methodology, the more normal technology is to tighten, muscularly contract. And a lot of power, to a certain extent, can be developed by external arts, external sports, by simply using the macro, the muscle, body mechanics. But there's limitations and problems to that as well. It takes much longer to be able to activate and use consciously these internal skills. But let me give you an example of why, and on a very practical physics level, these what seem to be much more subtle technologies and abilities. One simple example of how and why it's different and effective. See if I can illustrate this. Like, there's many reasons, but here's one I think one I can relay. If this is, let's start with a punch coming in. It could be a punch or a grab. If this is coming in, this impacting missile is coming in, the normal thing to do is to tighten and brace. Oh my goodness, and tighten and brace. And what that means is that all that force is not only going into my body, but it's going into a hard crystallized body. There's that old, that very common sense idea. If you're about to get into a car accident, try to relax. People get really injured is when they tighten up, right? When they tighten up is when they really get injured. So when you have a force going through you, and even if you don't tighten up more than what you normally are, if you're normally a normal person who's quite tight, our tissues are quite crystallized or frozen like water, like ice. So a big part of the internal martial arts, we turn ourselves back into liquid water or even gaseous water, state and not tight. Everybody's frozen. And so when impact goes in, when force goes in, it breaks the tissues. The crystallization is hard and strong until it's broken. So the external arts are very powerful, very hard and strong until they meet a bigger, stronger force. And then there's only one option for them, and that's to break. They are broken. So they're great and they're strong until they meet a superior force. Bigger structure, bigger force, then there's no alternative for them. They either win through brute force and being there faster, stronger, bigger, and if they're not, they're done. So incoming force comes in, it breaks the tissues. But of course, being soft and relaxed, that force can go through us. And just like sonar through water. Sonar can't move through ice, but it can move through liquid water. So that force going through, if we're soft and relaxed, can go through us. But that's the really, really basic idea. That's not really, I want to underscore that as I went to this next step. I'm really going to be talking about something additional to that. So that's very, very basic, being relaxed and soft and open. It's the internal way, very different than the external martial arts, exactly the opposite. I remember doing karate. We literally, everything was about tightening up, dynamic tension, and going very, some often work very slow, but everything is very, very, very tight on purpose. Isometric exercise. So that's a certain way, and it has value to it. This is a very different methodology. So we'll leave that softness behind. Hopefully that's fairly clear, but let me know if there's questions there. There's other dynamics and aspects and dimensions and qualities that are created. It's not just relaxed and soft, because relaxed and soft is just a dummy, like an inanimate object, like crash dummy. They're soft and relaxed, but it's dead. So in internal martial arts, that relaxation is not normal relaxation, which is a deadness. People crashing on the couch at the end of a long, hard day. That's maybe relaxed, but it's not released, open and alive. So this opening and stretching that we do is about not just being soft and relaxed, but the other element that's often not recognized. Being soft and relaxed, but also being open, dynamically open, and charged even, full, but not full of tension, full of relaxation, full of emptiness. So this is where I want to get to. So if we have this incoming force, not talking about just softness right now, talking about something that's actually much more dynamic than that. Empty, full of emptiness. So instead of this coming in, there's not an access point to come in. It's like if you had like a nicely filled balloon, let's say filled with water, or even filled with air, really, really filled, but the balloon is quite strong. It's not very thin. But if it's nicely full, in Tai Chi we call it pung, expansive force. You can't get traction on it or purchase on it. You go to hit it and you're off. You go to touch it and you're off. You go to touch it and you're off. So go back to why I didn't want to just stay with relaxation. That's part of it. If you imagine that balloon, whether it's water or air in there, is underfilled because it's very sloggy and sloppy, and it's not filled very much, right? You go in and give it some force, it goes boom, you go right into it, and you still crush it. You can go into it and really penetrate into it and really assault it, really get in there. So it's not just soft where it can just go and you become like that underinflated balloon. Instead of that, you're nicely filled, so there's no purchase. There's no purchase. Even a grab, if I'm a normal person, either firm and hard, there's lots of purchase there, very easy, normal. Or if you're underdeveloped and too yin, too soft, they can grab you even harder. So this is being open, filled with emptiness, and there's no place to purchase. So martially and self-defense wise, that's extremely potent. That's the perfect example of someone coming in, they grab, they don't know what they're grabbing, they're out of sorts, they're confused even, literally, if not shocked. And just that upsets their mental equilibrium. Not to mention they come in with their physical force and they don't meet the traction that they expect, and that's enough to have kazushi. Any questions about that? So this whole thing of opening the body, emptying the body, stretching the body, extending, opening, but not using your muscles, because muscles are totally relatable. Everybody, someone grabs you, you use your muscles. Use your muscles, they react with their muscles. That's instinctual, everybody understands that. When you change the body to this different vehicle, this creature, it's unsettling. It's actually quicker than that. It puts them into an arena they don't understand. And literally, again, if you can imagine coming in, no purchase, they're taken off by their own impetus.
So Sensei, like, you can hear me okay, hey?
Yeah, yeah.
So it, like, let's say, like, for example, like someone's coming in for a grab and you pull away, like that act of pulling away, provided you can get away, but instead of, I'm trying to like imagine that where it's like it slips through kind of thing because there's nothing to get or nothing to grab onto.
That's
Really.
close. Well, that's a very, very basic approach. That's the starting approach of soft style martial arts. There's an old saying, very old saying, it's in judo as well. When you're pushed, pull. If you're pulled, push. So you're not fighting with their force, you're going with their force. So the specific example that you're providing is if they're grabbing and pushing you, pull. And you can pull them into palm heel strike or pull them into anything you want. So that's not really what we're talking about, but that's the first step in leaving behind the fighting approach, force against force, and using a different water-like approach. That's the very first step on the physical level. So if I were to use that example, it's that when they grab you, it's a different quality. You are a different quality. So that there isn't the fight or flight response. It's neither. Flight, resisting, their nervous system understands that. They can deal with that. That's flight. Fight, they understand that. You're fighting them back. They don't even have to think about it. Their nervous system understands that, and they can fight back too. And of course, freeze, fight, flight, or freeze, they understand that too. You're just a block of ice, then they can do whatever they want. That's all relatable. The internal martial arts creates something very different. So when they grab, let's say they grab and they pull you, yes, you might agree with that and come in with some strikes, but it's more than that. It happens right here on the spot. So grabbed, either you have this Aiki body, developing the Aiki body. Eventually, ideally, we have it all the time. Eventually, that takes a lot of training, a long time of training. Eventually, it accrues, it cultivates, it develops. So you have this more and more and more and more on all the time to one degree or another. But well before that starts to happen, you can turn it on when you need it. And so they come in, they grab, I open and inflate. I don't fight them. I don't shirk away. I open and release and extend and lengthen. That's already penetrated into their system, created some form and level of kazushi, physically and mentally. And then I can add strikes and things behind that, martial things behind that. But eventually, even doing a strike or an Aikido lock or pin, even a strike, it's a very different animal. So a very simple example of that, we've touched upon a little bit over the last number of months. When we do a strike, we do it by opening up the joints. So maybe not everybody's too familiar with that yet. So a more internal way of doing strike, again, external martial arts, a lot of power from the hips and legs, and it's unified power, coordinated power, and you want tension and tightness for that strength and power. Internal strikes, completely different. I do a strike by opening up my joints. I'm opening up my joints. I'm opening. It's like reaching out to pat someone on the back. You open. And eventually it's through your entire body from the ground. That's why we talk about entering the ground, because now you have a relatively, you could say, an infinite mass that's supporting you and that you expand from. That's supporting your expansion. So, and again, very different than external martial arts and normal mentality. So you can deliver a very vital strike by expanding, and there's no sense of violence in you, in your feeling, in your idea, in your action, no sense of violence whatsoever. In fact, it's like reaching out to pat a friend on the back, but just very, yeah. So you're killing them softly or killing them with love, right? So that becomes a literal thing, right? It becomes a literal thing where reaching out to touch a friend, you just add a little bit more spark to that, and drop it into the ground so you get more reverberation back. It can become a very potent strike, a very potent strike. Now, just to touch upon that just a little bit further, because we don't have a lot of time to get into this, and not sure how much you're interested in getting into it. But to talk about this just for another moment, what we're just saying about reaching out to touch a friend, that can be a devastating strike. When it's this kind of strike where it's open, coming from an openingness, an expansionness, when you get hit by something like that, it can be a spiritual experience. It wakes you up. It changes you because it's not an angry force coming into you and this built up, crude, heavy, red meat, angry force. It's this white light opening up, white tissue, white light opening up. And that can be liberating to the person receiving it. It can wake them up. Oh, I see. I shouldn't be doing this. What touches upon that is what Mary Heine Sensei has said. When you throw someone, what kind of person is getting back up? So she's talking about that completely. What kind of intention and feeling was in your throw? Was it hard? Get rid of this bastard, take care of them, destroy them. That all goes into them. And then if they're able to get back up, they want justice. If you are doing this different process, this different being, this different quality, this different technology, it doesn't have that effect. And in fact, it can have a liberating, enlightening effect. An enlightening effect. I've shared with some of you recently, for example, many, many years ago, when I was thrown by a very, very adept practitioner, much more experienced than me, many years ago, throwing me hard, literally across the dojo, like 6-7 feet each time at least. And this is when I was actually fairly new, fairly junior. So I wasn't really good at break falling, wasn't really good at taking ukemi at all. In fact, he was throwing me, and I was landing like just helter-skelter, just landing. Anyway, but every time I landed, I got up, I was like invigorated. I felt like I was getting, every time I landed, it was like an instant massage through every cell in my body. And I could feel incredible force I was being thrown with, but no sense of to me, on me, to get me, to hurt me, to done to me. No incredible amount of force and power I was feeling and being thrown by, but no sense this was being done to me. I was being swept up by this incredible energy, this sublimeness. And when I hit the ground, got back up again, it's like, I want more of that. It woke me up. It literally woke me up. So anyway, so that's a fairly deep, long discussion. So we continue on, unless you have any comments or questions. So, well, let's jump into, see if we can do something that we haven't done on the Kyu program. We've pretty much covered the last couple of classes. So I think we covered everything on the new Kyu program. Okay, one or two things here that we can do. So a couple variations on the ukemi. Okay, so the Yoko Otoshi will be this version, and we've done this version before. So as you know, the 9th Kyu version was here. Okay, so the 8th Kyu version will be flipping side to side. So I think everybody's been exposed to this to one level or another. And so that's here, this regular side breakfall position. And you simply switch to the other side when you're first learning it. Simply switch. And then the actual demonstration or technique is throwing the upper body in the air in a big arc and landing with the slap in the feet at the same time. So of course the head stays on the chest. And you want that same structure with the legs. So that's a Yoku Otoshi for 8th Kyu. Okay. And then one other ukami will be Mai Otoshi. Mai Otoshi, which is front break fall. So Senpai knows about this. Front break fall. And we're going to start from kneeling. And it looks like this. So you're avoiding your stomach from being hit on the ground, so you don't have the wind knocked out of you. Protecting your face, so your nose and teeth don't get smashed and jaw doesn't get hit. Turn your head, and you're in this shape here. So to start to learn it, if you just come to the position, the end position, where you want to be. So I don't want to be flat on my stomach. So it's the underside of my forearm and palm. Here. So it's like a kind of a mini plank here. Now, you want to turn your head, as I mentioned, before you go. So we don't want to tuck our chin when we do a forward break fall, because tucking our chin puts our forehead closer to the ground. So we don't tuck our chin for a forward break fall. We turn the head to minimize damage to the front of the face, teeth, jaw. And so it looks like this. So yeah, you want to land with the palms slightly before the forearms. Definitely you don't want to land first on the elbows. So it's almost like a Minucci shape, but it's not the hand blades forward, it's the palms. With the full meaty surface of the palms meeting the ground as the first point of contact. So here. Do a couple towards the camera, that might be helpful. Okay. So I guess that's all we have time for today. For some reason, I'm not getting the running out of time signal. Looks like they're not about to cut us off, but I have the next class coming up. So we got into a bit more of a discussion of what's involved with internal martial arts. And definitely not all Aikido people, Aikido organization schools, approach it that way. In fact, many, if not most, approach it in a very external way. You just have very circular movements, but it's still very, very external, very much just biomechanics. True internal martial arts are a much different path. So these things we talked about, not being able to, describing a different kind of body that doesn't respond like a normal body, that doesn't be like a normal body. And even when you have to get more intense, it's a completely different quality and feeling, both in the receiving end of that and in the delivery of that. So maybe another time we can talk more about that, if so desired. But let's do some misogi. So again, be conscious of the connection with the ground. Release the abdomen. That'll allow you to connect even more. It's really important to hang the tailbone or hang the hips. What that does is it connects the upper and lower body. So we're one unit, one piece. The normal way of standing, which is tight up here and everything's up, that separates, it disintegrates the body. Hanging the hips, straightening the lower back, unifies the body, integrates everything. It also allows that ground, what's called in internal martial arts, the ground force. The ground force is allowed up through our body, through the whole body, eventually, ideally, right through the top of the head. So the ground moves through the body, right through the top, integrating, unifying the body. So then when someone interacts with that, they're interacting with the ground. When you interact with something or someone, it's the earth delivering itself to them through you. It's a very simple beginning approach to that idea. Breathing in, expanding out from the center, breathing out. So let yourself open and expand as if your entire body is breathing in and filling. Imagine and feel your entire body is exhaling. The knees be soft, shoulders released. Chin is dropped down about an inch, so the back of the neck is also straight, just like the lower back. Softer and softer in the arms, shoulders, and body. Still being lifted and supported and aligned by the ground. And settling to the center. Relaxing down from the center. So the entire weight of the upper body settles to the hara. And then from here down through the hips and legs. Each out breath is a releasing breath. Okay, let's bow out.
Domo arigatou gozaimasu.
どうもありがとうございます。
All right.
Do you have birds?
Yes, we have parrots.
Okay. I was wondering.
So they make, it sounds like a lot more than what we have. We just, because they make all kinds of sounds.
Yeah.
All kinds of birds and other animals.
I find it comical. I like it. And then I sometimes I get a kick out of the cat wandering in and then being like, what's up? And then taking off.
Yeah, sometimes the cats feature prominently in some of these videos.
I'm okay with it.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool to see your big pup.
Yeah, the other one's in his cage. He's a puppy still. He's huge.
Is that the one we saw?
No, that's Juno. She's laying down right now.
Right.
And this is Rambo. He's a big cane corso. I don't know if you can see him.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. He's just he's a big goof, actually. He's too big. His hands are too big for him. He's trying to figure it out.
Lots of growing yet. Lots of growing yet.
Sorry about it.
What kind of breed did you say?
He is a cane corso,
Not familiar.
which is like a cross with the Presa Canary. So it's like an Italian Mastiff. They're big guard dogs prominently. And my other dog is an English Mastiff.
Oh, wow.
They're just sucks. They're pure sucks, but they got your back. It's pretty cool.
Right on. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Nice.
Well, if I don't, I'll be putting out some more videos, but won't be having any live Zoom classes for a couple weeks anyway, but I'll be shooting out some material for you to continue training and practicing. So have a Merry Christmas and wonderful New Year. And
Yeah, thank you. You as well.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Goodbye.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.